My name is Clara. I got married without understanding the world and soon after became a widow, because my husband, the center of my affections, suffered a misfortune at work. In the midst of my mourning, I discovered a new life within myself. My son never knew his father. Today he is 21 years old and I am 38. I became pregnant at 18. We have always been very reserved, living in the same house that my late husband left us, in a place where we had no family ties. Since Matthew was born, we shared a bed, and over the years, this practice not only persisted but became stronger. I remember one occasion, when Matthew was entering puberty, when we woke up at dawn, I noticed a morning tension that often affects men, and without waking up, something different approached me, while I was lying in front of him. From that moment on, something in me changed. I began to see Matthias in a different light. At 13, he was already as tall as me, since I am also short. We always ended up falling asleep and waking up entwined, comfortable as two companions on a journey. As he matured, we maintained the same routine. It became a challenge to maintain the facade of respect and formality. He struggled to contain his impulses, and any touch seemed to ignite his youthful exuberance. On one of those peaceful nights, as we slept together, I woke up well before dawn and found myself embraced by him, in complete and peaceful tranquility. An unusual thought struck me, as if a new feminine side had revealed itself in me, something that transcended mere maternal curiosity. With trepidation, but warmed by intense emotion, I carefully removed a piece of his clothing to explore. My hand found rough ground and I remained there, timidly, simulating a methodical caress, until he sighed softly and turned, exposing his torso. I confess that a fear overcame me, fearing that he had noticed, but I kept my curious hand where it was. He remained asleep, and little by little, I advanced until I touched a suspended and relaxed pendulum, like a sleeping snake. That was a combination of relief, fear, and modesty, but I continued anyway, until I reached the origin, voluminous and full, and I stayed there, making movements of tenderness. I returned to hold what had previously rested, now alert and ready, as if I was summoning it for a task. Then, I thought it wise to gently withdraw my hand before waking my young heir. Throughout the day, a heavy guilt and remorse accompanied me for what I had done, feeling that I was compromising the structure of the one I was supposed to protect, but my curiosity, I suspect, would lead me to go further. I confess that, after that day, I found myself overcome by this curiosity several times, offering to get his towel and inviting him to rest with me, claiming that I could only rest when we were very close. As a devoted mother, I would lie down in a velvety manner, as if I were going to a date full of voluptuousness. On those nights, I would get ready with my hair loose and an inviting aroma for bed, noticing that Matthias was getting ready to lie down. After a while, he would come closer, already predisposed to dream about us, and when he lifted the blanket to snuggle up, he would only hear a soft murmur, "Wow, Mom," perhaps because he believed that I was already immersed in sleep. He would use the flashlight on his cell phone to better see my tiger marks on the fuller sides, which were not hidden by any fabric, completely exposed to a possible advance of affection. He usually settled down the way I taught him, due to the intense heat in our region, always with a growing freedom of the body. I smiled discreetly when I noticed his sleeping companion. I got ready to go to work, watching him almost all the time. That night, he finally revealed a vulnerability behind me, with a curiosity that escaped his lips. I was surprised by this, feeling the nectar flowing from my flower. I was restless, adjusting myself all the time, just to, who knows, offer an involuntary treat and put it in my basket. The sensation was as if an angry bird came to visit the already soaked nest, entering all at once, leaving no space. He made his way in an indescribable way. Instead of feeling an extreme sense of guilt, I felt pure and blessed. My treasure, my true independence. His act, unlike mine, was involuntary. He just snuggled up and stayed there, as if frozen with fear, shock and pain, remaining still until his strength diminished and I managed to free myself. The next morning, worried that he would notice the marks on my body and the sheets, I made sure to wake up before him and change some clothes. Believe me, it was my first intimate experience in 19 years. In the morning, I was shaking with nervousness and despair, like someone suffering from withdrawal and yearning for more heat, passion, and ardor. In the office, I moved restlessly in my chair. At dinner time that night, Matthew woke up later, came into the kitchen and said, "Mom, I'm embarrassed, but I need to talk." At that moment, my heart seemed to stop, my legs weakened. I turned my back so that he wouldn't notice my trembling and answered, "Tell me, son. What happened?" I sat down because my legs were shaking, and said, "What do you mean, tell me?" He then said, "Mom, I'm sorry, but in the dream I was your father and I was with you." I remained silent, not knowing what to say, not knowing if it was a creation of his mind or if he had really dreamed it. I only know that the worst was over and he didn't mention anything about the gesture of affection from the night before. After dinner, we went to bed as usual, but I noticed he was excited as he prepared to sleep and more. When we finally settled in, we chatted about various things. I mentioned that I would wait for the pension to be deposited so that I could fix the air conditioning in his room, so that he could go back to sleeping there. He replied, "Mom, I prefer to sleep here with you, like before." At that moment, I sensed the mischief in the conversation and turned my back to him, saying, "Okay, then, good night, love." He settled in, we connected, and he kissed me on the back of the neck as a farewell to sleep. I couldn't contain myself. No longer caring about conventions, I put my arm around him and pulled him closer, fitting my pelvis against his abdomen. And guess what? He was hard as a rock. We remained still for a moment, until he began to move and I was overcome by an indescribable feeling. Suddenly, I turned to him, helped him onto his back, and went for the lasso, like an experienced cowgirl. I held the cylinder and wrapped it in my warmth, admiring him as he welcomed an instrument into my hands. Everything was so euphoric and desperate that it seemed like a fight. We were so wet that we were slipping like children on a soapy dance floor. I felt powerful in that hold, with my breasts swaying in their virtue. He held them, incredulous, murmuring, "Mommy, mommy," almost as if he were about to cry so hard in such a small space. "Go on, son," I said, "you can trust me." The noise was like someone preparing a cake, and we seemed like a single being in a dance of repetitive movements focused on a single point. He let his melody ring out and I joined in loud and clear, excited. I vibrated as I felt the signs that something was about to happen, the seed for that fertile and prepared land. His tool was working deeply to sow and consolidate that moment. When he signaled the flow, I remained still and heavy on him. I lay down hugging him and let all the content flow from the pipe, nourishing the plant completely, pouring nutrients into the flower's vase. "It's okay, son," I said. He could barely answer after many panting breaths. He asked, almost whispering, on the verge of sleep, "Mom, what was that?" And I answered, giving him a kiss on the cheek. "It was love, my dear, a mother's love." He relaxed his head to the side, with our contact giving the last signs of life, and fell asleep almost instantly. I lay down next to him, satisfied and sensitive, breathless, looking at him. In the morning, when I saw that mess, I felt an ineffable warmth and woke him up with a strong coffee and a strong tea that perfumed the whole house. We took a good shower and went about our routines. I went to work and he went to school. As I drove, I smiled as the sun made the asphalt undulate, happy to be open to new experiences and ready to experience something new. Did you like this story? Leave a comment telling us what you thought, and if you've experienced something similar, share it with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any new content. Here, we always bring life stories, reflections, and real experiences, all with great sincerity. Thank you for watching until the end and for being part of this journey. See you in the next video.